My first crash. Second crash. That's probably pretty creepy up close, but made it.
So if you're new here, I like to share my cycling adventures. I've ridden my bike along the east coast of Florida, from St. Augustine to Key West. And during the pandemic, just when we thought it was over,
well, you did get the recon it from the air.
I got to recon it from the air. I flew out yesterday, looked down at the route, and I'm like, wow, there's a whole lot of nothing down there in Arizona desert.
So I packed up my bike, all my gear, and starting in San Diego, California, I rode across the southern tier of the United States with the goal of live streaming an hour a day and finishing near my home in St. Augustine Beach, Florida.
All right.
By the way, there's a link in the description where you can check out the live streams.
That's it. And my feet just got wet.
But what if I could design a ride where I have, let's say, a 50-50 chance of making it?
So why 50-50 ride? Well, I thought of this idea, 50-50 ride, where I pick out routes that are hard for me, super hard, and I may not finish. So at least I have a 50-50 shot of finishing. So today's ride is the first one. So I picked a pretty cool route, ride across Florida, that's cool, coast to coast, one day, that's cool. And self-supported. And so that's cool too.
So here's the plan. We draw a basic bike route from St. Augustine to Inglis. It's about 163 miles and should take about 14 to 16 hours. I mean, what could go wrong?
Think of the average person's daily life. They wake up in the soft bed, temperature-controlled home. They shuffle over to the microwave a breakfast burrito, right, that came in from who knows where and is made with who knows what. And you just rinse and repeat that. At no point in daily life, I would argue, are people really challenged or really uncomfortable.
So what does that mean? We're too comfortable. What are the real problems of comfort we're facing? And what does that look like? And what's that have to do with a physical challenge?
2, that's the percent of people who take the stairs when there's the choice
2%?
2% people who take the stairs when there's a choice of an escalator. 70% of people are overweight or obese. Only 20% of eating is actually driven by physiological hunger.
Type 2 diabetes, hypertension, lipid problems, cardiovascular disease, cancer, dementia.
The list of medical problems tied directly to the food we're being marketed.
We are actually making ourselves sicker by eating the processed food that the food industry has told us is good for us.
If I'm being honest, I can definitely relate to the food crisis in the United States. My ride across America, I was joking with someone that it's a connection of convenience stores all the way across the United States to try to find good, wholesome food. You got to go to the populated areas. But what's the big deal? I mean, we can eat what we want, right?
Researchers at Florida Atlantic University have found that suicide rates are climbing among 13 and 14-year-olds. The study found that suicide rates for teens more than doubled from 2008 to 2018. It coincides with more use of social media.
I mean, teenage suicide rates are super high right now. I mean, I think about the isolation of veterans during the pandemic, and a lot of the access to care was always a challenge. I remember on the ride across America the first day, there was a veteran who saw me on TV that morning in San Diego, and he met me on the ride about 40 miles into my ride. He was sitting on the side of the road, handed me oranges, and we talked for about 5-10 minutes about his challenges. He was an aging veteran and things that he was dealing with. What a special moment. But it is a challenge for us. I mean, could there be something else to this problem?
Regular chemistry lab on him. That's like about a $12 blood test, and gave him like, I don't know, 250 to 500 cc of IV fluid. What do you think the bill was? I think the bill was $6,000, of which we owed $2,000. Juxtapose that with the following fact. Fewer than 50% of Americans today, if given 24 hours, can produce $2,500 in cash. When we say healthcare is the leading cause of personal bankruptcy, it's the first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Like there's nothing else matters besides healthcare when it comes to personal bankruptcy, right? We're spending 2 to 5x every other developed nation in what we spend on healthcare.
But why?
And we get worse outcomes. Okay, so the big reason comes down to made up numbers. Look at my ER example. The blood test cost, the actual cost of ordering that blood test is $12. The bag of IV fluid is probably $38. Why do they inflate the cost so much? It's because they play a shell game with the insurance company.
I think a lot of us can relate to the cost of healthcare, right? It's a big deal. So for the veterans out there, many of us have some level of service-connected disability. People ask me kind of what hurts out there when you ride that far. And I've just really struggled with recurring back injury for decades now. And it turns out that just the simplest tasks are tough. But I find that on the bike, for some reason, for whatever reason, posture on the bike is just good enough to allow a period of being pain-free. And so that's why the bike is a good fit for me. It also helps me process through a lot of anxiety and many of us veterans encounter. And it's almost like really, really good therapy. But again, so what? What does doing something hard in your life have to do with any of this? Good morning. It's gonna be a long day. So today is a ride across Florida, one-day ride. I've never done before. Longest ride ever, 25% of it's off-road, unpaved. A lot of that is single track. First 3 hours or so is in the dark. Last however long it's gonna be in the dark. Calling this 50-50 ride. My estimate is I got about a 50-50 shot. Here at the start line, 50-50 ride across Florida one day, a route I designed. St. Augustine Beach is behind me, giving it a few more minutes before I depart. I'm gonna depart about 3 a.m. here. Really, it's all timing to get to Buckman Lock, which is part of the Cross Florida Barge Canal, and that opens at 6:30. So I wanna get there right when they open, get across the lock, and then down into the Ocala National Forest. So we're rolling out of the pier, the ride begins. Well, the first climb, I guess. 312 bridge coming out of St. Augustine, off the island, going over the Intercoastal Waterway. Pretty quiet so far. It's a little chilly. I'm about an hour and a half in at my first rest stop, one of my favorites out here in Hastings. So far, everything's working great. I just want to show you this K-Light dynamo light is just rocking. It's got 3 lights, so that middle light lights when your front wheel is moving more than 7 miles an hour, and that hub there is called a dynamo hub. It's just been rocking. I want to give a shout out, show you here. The bar yak is just super, super awesome. I just love the aero bar setup for these long rides. I've got about 141 miles to go, about 20 miles in, and it's just been just super comfortable ride so far. Rear lights, this is the other part of the dynamo hub. It's on steady right now, but it blinks as long as I'm moving, and it takes very little power whatsoever, and it's also connected to the dynamo hub. I've got about 2 hours left of dark riding, and then it's supposed to be a nice day. It's hard to describe how a ride like this makes you feel. I mean, at the beginning, it's just something super big in front of you that you literally feel like you have a 50-50 shot from beginning to end. It's a worthy challenge, I think, isn't it? All right, in about 10 minutes before the sun comes up, and we got to cross the barge canal on foot over the top of the lock. Well, we're walking across the lock here. He was going to take me across the lock up there, but he had just gotten here and the lock was open. He's like, they didn't leave me a note. And it turns out that one's broken. So I'm across here, but I got to get through a gate with a combination lock that he gave me. Hopefully I can get up here to the end and get through this gate. And here we are, made it across the lock. Next phase is through the Ocala National Forest. I got about 70 miles for my next food stop, and I I got some food in Palatka this morning, so there's a campground, Rodman campground up here. I think I'm gonna top off my hydration pack before I head into the forest, just to be on the safe side. All right, it's daybreak. I'm getting ready to head into the forest. I topped off at Rodman Campground. My water sure is pretty. Makes riding all worth it. A lot of people also ask me about, hey man, do you get bored out there? What do you eat? How do you handle all that traffic? I mean, those are all good questions. Certainly nutrition is a big part of it. Planning where your refuel stops are gonna be. But kind of what I said earlier, it's to avoid traffic, you have to ride rural roads. If you ride rural roads, it's not exactly like you're gonna have a really nice Publix along the way. And then you have to plan on locking your bike in that period of time. So convenience stores are usually the best option. So what I do is I plan ahead and take as much nutrition with me on board as I can. Well, my first crash, this loose sand. I gotta take some air out of the tires. Thought I could get through it. It wasn't happening. Off-road coming up. Yeah, that was it. That was the crash. Slow speed crash. It doesn't get easier as you get older to crash. I see that sand was kind of loose there, just went right down. Well, see if we can hike a bike a little bit. Ah yes, crashing on the bike. That is never fun at all. It hurts. That first crash snuck up on me. I saw the deep sand. I just couldn't get clipped out. Landed right on my right elbow. It still hurts, by the way. Part of the game, just get up, shake it off, and keep moving. Been doing some hike a bike. I was out here a couple months ago and the sand was a lot more packed, but it is deep, deep, deep. I just haven't had a lot of rain. Had 2 hurricanes and then that was it. Already a long day and it's gonna be a lot longer. So I just wanna give you a sense as to, we were out here in September. I was able to get my Jeep through this with no problem. And I mean, you may not be able to see this on camera. It doesn't do it justice. But that is literally, we're in at least ankle deep, shin deep sand. I reconned that route as much as I could over the past several months, but we've had a real dry spell after a couple of hurricanes here in Florida. And some of those sand roads that I reconned 2 months ago have gotten so soft, they were unrideable. Ugh, second crash. Deep sand, couldn't get clipped out. You know, you gotta, at some point, I was thinking about making a decision like, do I go with shelf pedals and not clip in? But you know, when 75% of the ride is on road, you wanna have clip-in pedals. But when it's unrideable and you're constantly clipping in and out, I know I'm whining. Suck it up, Dave. I know, I hear you. Oh, Dave, it's easy. I could totally do that. It's totally rideable. Yeah, okay, come on, come on, come on. Okay, I need a minute. That was awful. That was absolutely awful. Totally different experience 2 months ago. But I'm in the middle of Central Florida now with mosquitoes everywhere and ooh, we got just a little bit of attitude. That's what this ride's about. You go through periods of good and you go through periods of awful. And that was awful. I think this road terminates into a highway that then goes into single track. I don't mind single track as long as it's rideable, but this, I was anticipating to be able to ride this with no problem, and that just wasn't happening. Time to get some lunch. Gotta hop it. So I got to the single track, got really gnarly in there, muddy and lots of low areas. Big stump I had to negotiate, but that was fine. Back on the trail.
So I'm enjoying the Santos trail. Been on the road all day, enjoying the ride, but it's starting. I mean, whoever said Florida's flat, Florida's not flat. I can tell you that. A lot of up and down. So I've got one more single track called the Tricycle Trail coming up here at the end of this paved path. I'm really starting to suffer. There's really no way I'm gonna finish before sunset. I'm looking at the time. It's already past 3 o'clock, 44 miles to go. People ask me like, how far can you ride? And it's not about how far you can ride, it's how you ride far. Knowing when to take breaks, knowing when to eat. Nutrition's a big part of it. And knowing that you're gonna have bad patches, like I did back there on that sand. So you're gonna have a bad patch, you're gonna get frustrated, just acknowledge it, move on. Don't let yourself spin about it. This last single track sector was 6 miles long. It's late in the day, I was already tired, and I've learned on an easy 6 mile sector, or should I say an easy single track sector, it's really kind of difficult for me on a gravel bike, especially if it's technical, to go faster than 6 miles an hour. A 6 mile stretch, like you see here, took an hour, and that's a long time late in the day, if I'm being honest. Kind of in a little bit of a dilemma. I made it to the water, to the barge canal, which connects to the Gulf, but I'm 4.8 miles short because the park closes at sunset. Although the bike gate is open, all other gates are closed. So rather than posting all that on YouTube and getting caught for trespassing, we're gonna call it a win-win. I mean, I think I'm at, let's see, 157.8 miles. And the RV park that we're staying at is just on the other side of the bridge. So I should have the mileage by the time I get there. But not bad for a day's work. I mean, 50-50 ride is a fail, but it's a win. You decide. So what happened? So here's what happened at the finish. I knew in the back of my mind that that was public land. There would be a chance that the last 5 miles would be at risk if I didn't get there before sunset. And so as the delays began to stack up throughout the day with hiking a bike, slow going through those areas, the hours just started ticking away, and it became apparent that there was really no way I was going to get to that park by sunset. So as it turns out, the gate was open, but I mean, when you think about it, I mean, the signs were clearly posted, closes at sunset. So out of respect for them, I decided to cut the ride short. Simple as that. And that was such an empowering decision. Why is that empowering? Because I wasn't fixated on a point to get to the finish line. At the end of the day, literally at the end of the day, it's about the journey, isn't it? It's about the journey. And for me, that journey ended at that point. I have no regrets. But I invite you to decide, should I have kept going, or was it the right decision to stop? And I'm sure you're asking at this point, so what? So what? It's a good question. What's the big deal? I mean, Dave, you're telling me we have so much success in our life. Everything is within arm's reach. We could pick up a remote control without getting out of our chairs. Our refrigerators are full of food, albeit processed. We have healthcare in this country that's second to none, although it's super expensive and the access is sometimes uneven. What are you telling me, Dave? I just would, from my perspective, I would say a ride like this helps me in several ways. And if I'm being honest, I'm talking to my age group and older. We kind of get to a point where we like our routines. Things that get out of routine tend to frustrate us. They frustrate us more. And so something like this for me really shocks me out of routine. Now for you, it may not be an extreme ride like this. It may be, hey, I'm not a reader. I need to go get a book and read it. It may be something as simple as take a different route to your group of people that you meet with on a weekly basis. Get out of your routine. Because I think when we do that, it helps build and sustain that resilience of mind that is so important to our overall health. All things being equal, obviously living the lifestyle of healthy choices, but I think keeping things new and fresh and doing something different, doing something hard, doing something challenging is, in my experience, one of the important secrets to longevity. So I didn't make it here to Overlook Point, but what I'd like for you to do is give me some ideas for the next ride. Is there a route that you have in mind that might be a good candidate for a 50-50 shot? Put it in the comments below.